I'm Sir Peter Squire, and it's my pleasure to be chairman of the Imperial War Museum, which Duxford is one of our 5 sites. Duxford is really archetypal of the airfield that we used to have in this country through World War I and World War II. Indeed, it's the sort of the longest and best surviving example of any of our historic airfields in this country. It was built at the back end of World War I. It was a training depot initially, a flying training school between the wars initially, and then converted in the sort of the late 20s, early 30s into a fighter station, and of course played a very important part in the Battle of Britain. When I think of the Battle of Britain, I always think of the Battle of France first of all, because the Royal Air Force was really quite involved in that particular battle, a hectic battle over 2 or 3 months as we moved west, unfortunately, through France and out through Dunkirk back to this country. For me, the Battle of Britain is really the beginning of the end of an episode in Europe where the Germans sought to dominate the whole of Europe under a Nazi regime, and the prospect of that, of course, would have been absolutely horrific. And the Battle of Britain was the beginning of the end of that aspiration on their part. Duxford was a superb airfield, well found. It was a major airfield in this part of the country. The pilots would have flown perhaps up to 6 sorties in a day, long days at that time of year. They were predominantly day fighter aircraft, but they would have been ready to go at first light to man their aircraft and fly, then right the way through to the long summer evenings of 10:30, 11 o'clock at night before they were able to get their heads down again. I suppose for the Royal Air Force, the Battle of Britain is really very much like Trafalgar and Waterloo is to the Army and the Navy. You're bound to be affected by the film footage of those days of young men lounging in deck chairs, seemingly sort of fully dressed in their uniform and Mae Wests, the bell ringing, and suddenly running to their aircraft, jumping in, starting up, strapping in as they taxied out to the end of the grass airfield, getting airborne. Whoever got there first got airborne first, they joined up. So really extraordinarily exciting and exhilarating, but very wearing as well. I think the ethos that was very evident in the Battle of Britain is still just as important today. Technology clearly has altered the tactics that pilots use in air-to-air combat. No longer is it restricted just to visual air combat, largely by day. Nevertheless, the determination, the aggressive handling of the aircraft, the ability to think in 3-dimensional terms, and above all, I think the commitment of the individuals to put service before self is just as important today as it ever has been. We've got 2 major weekends here commemorating the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Britain here at Duxford. Firstly, we want clearly to honour the few, and that is very important, whether they're the few that survive today or indeed their comrades who were either killed in the battle itself or who sadly have died since then. But we also want to showcase the Royal Air Force of 2010 to show our visitors how the service has developed over those 70 years to an extraordinarily capable service, albeit a smaller service, but with technology and the ability to mount combat operations almost anywhere in the world through the expeditionary capability that has been built up since the collapse of communism in the early 90s. So that's what we're aiming to do, remember the few, but to showcase the Royal Air Force of 2010.